Dive into a witty, heartwarming campus romance. Daniel Thornton, a brilliant physics prodigy who can calculate quantum behaviors, walks into the wrong room and accidentally joins the college drama club. His life is immediately upended by Salina Jenkins, the departmental ice queen, a captivating theater major who is precise, guarded, and completely unimpressed by his logic. The accidental Thespian, a physics genius, an ice queen, and a love story that defies logic. Chapter 1, in which our hero makes a terrible mistake. Daniel Thornton had always prided himself on his ability to calculate trajectories, predict quantum behaviors, and solve differential equations that made grown professors weep. What he apparently could not do, however, was tell the difference between room 237 and room 273 in Cornell's labyrinthine Goldwin-Smith Hall. This is how a brilliant, admittedly handsome, his mirror's words, not his, 19-year-old physics prodigy found himself standing in what was very clearly not the ham radio club meeting. For one thing, there were far too many emotions happening. People were crying, loudly, on purpose, and others were applauding this behavior, which Daniel found deeply concerning from a psychological standpoint. "You must be the new member." A whirlwind of purple scarves and excessive hand gestures descended upon him. The whirlwind had a name tag that read, Chip Hendricks, President, Drama Club. Daniel's first instinct was to correct this misunderstanding immediately. However, his second instinct, the one that had somehow gotten him through 4 years of foster homes, 3 scholarship interviews, and one particularly awkward incident involving Cornell's dean of admissions and a malfunctioning lab rat, told him to assess the situation before speaking. He assessed. The room contained approximately 23 students. He counted automatically, a habit from his obsessive-compulsive foster mother, Mrs. Henderson, who'd insisted on knowing the exact number of everything. 22 of them were looking at him with varying degrees of interest. The 23rd was sitting in the back corner, reading what appeared to be a leather-bound copy of Chekhov and radiating an aura of such profound disinterest that it created its own microclimate. She was beautiful in the way that winter is beautiful, precise, cold, and likely to cause frostbite if you got too close. Daniel's third instinct, which was really more of a biological imperative than an instinct, made his mouth say, "Yes, that's me, the new member." His brain, meanwhile, was filing an official complaint. "Wonderful! We're just doing our weekly warm-ups." Have you done the emotional kaleidoscope exercise before? Chip was already pushing Daniel toward the center of the room. "I can't say that I have," Daniel replied, which was perhaps the most honest thing he'd said in the last 30 seconds. "It's simple. You just cycle through every human emotion in 60 seconds. Happy, sad, upset, confused, elated, devastated. Really dig deep. Find your truth. We'll start you off easy. Go." Daniel stood in the center of the circle, 22 pairs of eyes upon him. The 23rd pair remained firmly fixed on Chekhov, and did what any rational person would do. He panicked. But Daniel Thornton hadn't survived the foster care system, accelerated through high school, and landed a full ride to Cornell by giving up easily. So he cycled through emotions. Sort of. He smiled. Happy. He stopped smiling. Sad. He furrowed his brow. Upset. He unfurrowed his brow and tilted his head. Confused. He repeated this sequence approximately 3.7 times in 60 seconds. The room erupted in applause. "Brilliant!" Chip squealed. "So subtle, so internal, very Stanislavski." Daniel had no idea who Stanislavski was, but assumed it was a compliment. He allowed himself a small smile of relief and caught, for just a moment, the briefest flicker of interest from the ice queen in the corner. Her eyes, a shade of gray that reminded him of storm clouds over Cayuga Lake, met his for exactly 1.3 seconds. He counted. He always counted. And in those seconds, Daniel felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. Specifically, he understood that he was in trouble. Chapter 2, in which Daniel learns he cannot act. The next meeting, Daniel actually meant to attend. He'd spent the previous 3 days trying to convince himself that this was purely for academic purposes. Drama was, after all, a form of communication. And communication was essential for any scientist who hoped to share their research with the world. Plus, there was the added benefit of studying human behavior in a controlled environment. Also, the Ice Queen would be there. His brain had given up filing complaints and had instead started drafting its resignation letter. "Daniel, wonderful to see you again." Chip bounded over like an over-caffeinated golden retriever. "Today we're doing scene work. I'm pairing people up randomly." He pulled names from what appeared to be a top hat, because of course he had a top hat. "Let's see, Daniel Thornton and Salina Jenkins." The universe, Daniel decided, had a sick sense of humor. Salina looked up from her book, The Seagull this time, with an expression that suggested she'd just been paired with a particularly unintelligent piece of furniture. "We're doing the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet," Chip announced with entirely too much glee. "Salina, you're Juliet. Daniel, you're Romeo. Take 15 minutes to rehearse, then we'll see what you've got." Salina stood with the kind of grace that probably required years of ballet training, closed her book with a decisive snap, and walked over to Daniel. She was exactly 5'7", he'd estimated based on proportion and distance, with dark hair pulled back in a style that his foster sister Maya would have called a severe bun. And she wore all black, despite it being a perfectly pleasant September afternoon. "Have you ever acted before?" Her voice was cool, crisp, and carried an accent that spoke of expensive boarding schools and country clubs. "Does lying to my social worker about being happy in my 7th foster home count?" The corner of her mouth twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was something. "I'll take that as a no." Right then, the balcony scene is Act 2, Scene 2. Romeo has snuck into the Capulet garden and sees Juliet on her balcony. He's completely besotted. She's conflicted about falling for her family's enemy. It's about longing, danger, and the recklessness of young love. Think you can manage? "I've calculated the gravitational constant to the 15th decimal place. I think I can handle some Elizabethan melodrama." This time, she definitely almost smiled. They found a corner of the room to rehearse. Salina handed him a worn script, pointed to his lines, and said, "Start from, 'But soft, what light through yonder window breaks?'" Daniel read the line. He read it exactly as it appeared on the page, with perfect diction and appropriate volume. Salina stared at him. That was certainly words in a sequence. "Was I supposed to do something else with them?" "You're supposed to feel them. Romeo is looking at the woman he loves. His heart is racing. He's terrified and exhilarated. He's comparing her to the sun, for God's sake. Give me some passion." Daniel tried again. This time he added what he thought might constitute passion, slightly elevated volume and emphasis on random words. "Better, in the way that a mild concussion is better than a severe one." Salina rubbed her temples. "Look, just think about something that makes you feel strongly. Channel that." What made Daniel feel strongly? Quantum mechanics, the way light behaved as both particle and wave, the elegant simplicity of Einstein's field equations, the fact that he was an orphan who'd never be able to ask his parents why they'd left him at that fire station 19 years ago. He looked at Salina, at her gray eyes and her severe bun and her aura of impenetrable cool, and suddenly he understood Romeo a bit better. "But soft, what light through yonder window breaks?" He said it softer this time, with actual wonder. "It is the east, and Juliet is the sun." Salina's expression shifted, just slightly. "Just enough." "Not terrible," she said, which Daniel suspected was the highest compliment she'd given anyone in years. They rehearsed for the remaining 12 minutes. Daniel wouldn't win any Oscars, but he managed to get through the scene without causing Salina to physically cringe, which felt like a significant victory. When they performed for the group, something strange happened. Daniel, who could lecture on quantum entanglement without notes, who could solve equations in his sleep, found himself genuinely nervous. Not about the words, he'd memorized them, naturally, but about disappointing the girl playing Juliet. "Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo?" Salina spoke, and the entire room seemed to shift. She wasn't Salina anymore. She was Juliet, young, conflicted, falling in love despite every logical reason not to. Daniel responded, and for 3 minutes and 47 seconds, he forgot he was Daniel Thornton, orphaned physics genius. He was just a boy talking to a girl, saying things that were simultaneously ridiculous and true. When they finished, the room was silent. Then Chip started crying. "That was beautiful! The chemistry, the tension, the subtle interplay of desire and restraint." Daniel and Salina stood there, suddenly very aware they were holding hands. When had that happened? And very quickly not holding hands. Salina withdrew hers as if she'd touched a hot stove. "It was adequate," Salina said, already walking back to her corner. But Daniel had seen her face during the scene. He'd seen something beyond the ice, something warm and alive, and possibly terrified. He was definitely in trouble. Chapter 3, in which our hero learns about Salina. Daniel did what any self-respecting scientist would do when confronted with a mystery: research. Salina Jenkins, his roommate, Tyler said around a mouthful of ramen, ice queen of the theater department, brilliant actress, probably going to win a Tony before she's 30. Also, rumored to have actually made a guy cry once just by looking at him. Why is she called the Ice Queen? Tyler slurped his noodles thoughtfully. Dude, she turned down Marcus Chen. Should that mean something to me? Marcus Chen, captain of the lacrosse team, heir to the Chen Hotel fortune, looks like he was photoshopped by angels? I'm more familiar with Heisenberg than with hotel heirs. She turned him down publicly, at the spring formal. He asked her to dance, and she said, and I quote, "I'd rather discuss paint drying. At least that might have some depth." The guy transferred to Yale. Daniel felt an odd sensation in his chest. He recognized it from his Introduction to Biology course as what happened when one's cardiovascular system experienced a small surge of satisfaction at a rival's defeat. Except Marcus Chen wasn't his rival. Daniel didn't even know him. This was getting complicated. Why are you asking about Salina Jenkins anyway? Tyler's eyes widened. Dude, no! Tell me you're not... I accidentally joined the drama club? How do you accidentally join a club? I got lost. And you're staying because... Daniel didn't answer. Tyler groaned. You're going to get your heart freeze-dried and served as a cautionary tale to future freshmen. I'm a sophomore. That's what you're focusing on, not the heart freeze-drying? But Daniel was already researching. He learned that Salina Jenkins was a junior from Manhattan, daughter of Martin Jenkins, Broadway producer, and Catherine Jenkins, née Ashford, former actress, current philanthropist. She was, in short, completely out of his league. Which was fine. Daniel had never been in his league anyway. When you grow up bouncing between foster homes, you learn that leagues are arbitrary social constructs designed to keep people in predetermined boxes. Daniel had spent his entire life ignoring what box he was supposed to stay in. Why stop now? Chapter 4, in which coffee is involved. The drama club met Tuesdays and Thursdays. By week 3, Daniel had learned several important things. He was a terrible actor, Chip's enthusiasm notwithstanding. He was getting slightly less terrible. Salina's grudging nods confirmed this. Salina Jenkins drank her coffee black, read Chekhov when bored, and Beckett when upset, and had a very specific way of tapping her pen against her script when she was thinking. He was completely, irreversibly, and quite possibly pathetically infatuated. You're staring again, Salina said without looking up from her book. They were in the campus coffee shop. This had become a routine. Drama club ended at 8 p.m., Salina always came here afterward, and Daniel had started coincidentally needing coffee at the exact same time. I'm observing, Daniel corrected. There's a difference. Not from where I'm sitting. Did you know that you tap your pen exactly 4 times when you're considering a line reading, but 6 times when you're frustrated with a scene partner? Now she looked up. You've been counting my pen taps? I count everything. It's a compulsion. My 3rd foster mother thought I had OCD, my 4th foster mother thought I was possessed, my 7th foster mother was actually pretty cool about it and bought me a clicker counter. You had 7 foster mothers? Daniel froze. He didn't talk about this. Not with Tyler, not with his academic advisor, not with anyone. But Salina was looking at him with something other than cool disinterest, and his mouth apparently decided this was permission to continue. 8, technically, but the second one was only for a weekend. Apparently, 6-year-old me was too intense about dinosaurs. What happened to your parents? No idea. I was left at a fire station as a baby. Very dramatic. Very mysterious. The social worker said they probably couldn't afford to keep me, but I prefer to think they were secret agents who had to fake their deaths to protect me from international spy rings. He said it lightly, like it was a joke. It was always better when it was a joke. Salina was quiet for a moment. Then, my mother hasn't spoken to me in 6 months. Daniel blinked. This was sharing actual personal information from the Ice Queen herself. Why not? Because I told her I was majoring in theater studies instead of business. Because I refused to join her junior league chapter. Because I'm apparently a disappointment to the Jenkins family legacy. She said it matter-of-factly, but Daniel heard the hurt underneath. You're a brilliant actress. How would you know? You barely understand what acting is. True, but I understand excellence when I see it, and you're excellent. Salina stared at him. Daniel stared back. The coffee shop continued its normal operations around them, but in their corner, something was shifting. You're very strange, Daniel Thornton. I'm aware. You don't belong in drama club. Also aware. Why do you keep coming? This was it. The moment of truth. Daniel could deflect, make a joke, retreat back into safe territory. Instead, he said, because you're there. Salina's pen stopped tapping. Her gray eyes widened slightly. For exactly 2.7 seconds, the Ice Queen looked almost vulnerable. Then she stood up, gathered her books, and said, I need to go. She was gone before Daniel could respond, leaving him alone with his coffee and the growing suspicion that he'd just made either the best or worst decision of his life, possibly both. Chapter 5, in which there is a play. Chip announced that the drama club would be performing a 1-act play festival in 6 weeks. Each member would direct a short piece. Naturally, he assigned Salina and Daniel to work together. This is punishment, Salina said when Chip announced the pairings. This is karma for that time I told Professor Matthews his Lear was aggressively mediocre. I think it'll be fun, Daniel offered. You think quantum mechanics is fun. Quantum mechanics is fun. Salina made a noise that might have been a laugh or might have been a small explosion of exasperation. Daniel was learning to appreciate that the difference was negligible. They met in the library to choose their play. Daniel had done research, of course he had, and brought a list of options. Absolutely not, Salina said to his first 3 suggestions. You haven't even heard them. You have a physics textbook poking out of your bag. I'm not letting you choose our play. That's discriminatory. That's self-preservation. They finally compromised on The Lover by Harold Pinter, a short, absurdist piece about a married couple who role-play being strangers. It was weird, slightly uncomfortable, and, according to Salina, at least has the virtue of being interestingly terrible when done badly. Daniel would be directing. Salina would be acting, along with Marcus Chen. Wait. Marcus Chen transferred to Yale, Daniel said, trying to keep his voice neutral. He transferred back, said he missed the intellectual rigor of Cornell. Salina's expression suggested she had other theories about what Marcus missed. Marcus Chen turned out to be exactly as Tyler described. Tall, handsome, charming, and in possession of the kind of effortless confidence that came from never having been left at a fire station. Daniel hated him immediately. Daniel, good to meet you, man. Marcus extended a hand, which Daniel shook with perhaps more force than necessary. Salina's told me about your unique journey into theater. Has she? It's refreshing, honestly. Too many people in this department take themselves so seriously. Right, Sal? Sal? He called her Sal. Salina's expression was unreadable. Let's just start rehearsal. The play required Marcus and Salina to portray a married couple engaging in elaborate fantasy roleplay. There was touching, there was intense eye contact. There was a scene where Marcus had to pull Salina onto his lap. Daniel directed this scene exactly 7 times before Salina finally snapped. What is the problem? We're doing exactly what you're asking. It's not the energy is wrong. The energy? Yes, you're too comfortable with each other. It's a married couple who are pretending to be strangers. There should be danger, uncertainty, the thrill of the unknown. Salina crossed her arms. You know what? Fine, you show us. What? You and Marcus run the scene. Show us what you want. I'm not an actor. You're in drama club, therefore you're an actor. Marcus, you're Sarah. Daniel, you're Richard. Go. This was humiliating. This was torture. This was Salina's gray eyes watching him with what might have been amusement, and Daniel would do absolutely anything to keep her looking at him like that. He and Marcus ran the scene. It was, objectively, terrible. Marcus was trying not to laugh. Daniel was trying not to die of embarrassment. But when Daniel delivered the line, "You're lovely," looking at where Salina would be standing, he felt it. The wanting, the fear, the desperate hope that the person you desired might, against all logic, desire you back. When they finished, Salina was quiet. "Again," she said, "but this time I'll run it with Daniel. Marcus, watch." They performed the scene. Salina sat on Daniel's lap. He stopped breathing. She touched his face. His brain short-circuited. She delivered her lines with a mixture of playfulness and genuine emotion that made Daniel forget this was pretend. When she said, "I'm afraid," her voice was soft, almost vulnerable. Daniel responded, "Don't be," and meant it completely. The library's rehearsal room was silent except for their breathing. "That," Salina said, not moving from where she was, "is what I want, that energy." "Okay," Marcus said slowly, "I think I understand now." He was looking between them with an expression that Daniel couldn't quite read. Later, Tyler would tell him it was the look of a guy who knew when he was beat. Chapter 6, in which things get complicated. The play was in 3 weeks. Daniel's physics midterm was in 2 weeks. He should have been studying. Instead, he was at rehearsal, watching Salina and Marcus perform their scenes with the energy he'd shown them. It was better now, more real. It also made Daniel want to throw himself into Cayuga Lake. "You okay?" Chip asked, appearing beside him with his usual impeccable timing. "Fine." "You're gripping your script so hard you're leaving dents." Daniel consciously relaxed his hands. "I'm fine." "You know, when I founded this drama club 3 years ago, I dreamed of creating a space where people could explore the full spectrum of human emotion. Love, jealousy, desire, heartbreak. Is there a point to this?" "You're in love with Salina." Daniel opened his mouth to deny it, then closed it, then said, "Is it that obvious?" "Only to everyone with functioning eyes." "Does she know?" Chip gave him a look that was surprisingly gentle. "Salina Jenkins is many things. Brilliant, talented, terrifying, but she's also deeply defended. Her parents' marriage imploded when she was 15. Very public, very messy. She doesn't trust easily." "I'm not trying to..." "I know, which is probably why she's terrified." "Of what?" "Of the fact that she's in love with you too." The world tilted slightly on its axis. She's not. "Daniel, I've directed 17 plays. I know chemistry when I see it. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" What was he going to do about it? Daniel had solved Schrodinger's equation. He'd built a working radio from spare parts in his 6th foster home. He'd gotten into Cornell on a full scholarship, despite having no permanent address. But asking out a girl, specifically this girl, felt impossible. I have no idea, he admitted. Chip patted his shoulder. Well, you'd better figure it out. We open in 3 weeks. Chapter 7, in which Daniel makes a gesture. Daniel's 7th foster mother, Mrs. Chen, no relation to Marcus, thank God, used to say that the best way to show someone you cared was through meaningful specificity. Don't give generic gifts, give gifts that show you've been paying attention. So Daniel paid attention. Salina liked Chekhov and Beckett. She drank black coffee. She tapped her pen when thinking. She wore all black. She had a subtle scar above her left eyebrow. He'd noticed it during their Romeo and Juliet scene. She laughed, actually laughed, when people fell down in old movies, which seemed inconsistent with her personality until Daniel realized it was the physical comedy, the precision of a pratfall, that delighted her. Armed with this information, Daniel made a plan. It was probably a terrible plan. Tyler certainly thought so. You're going to do what? A grand gesture. Romantic comedies are built on them. You've watched exactly one romantic comedy, and it was for a physics problem set about trajectory. Yes, but I've been doing research, extensive research. There are patterns, structures. The grand gesture typically occurs in the 3rd act, demonstrates the protagonist's growth, and involves some element of public vulnerability. Or, Tyler suggested, you could just tell her you like her. Where's the romance in that? Where's the likelihood of not getting publicly humiliated in your plan? But Daniel was committed. He'd calculated trajectories. He could calculate this. The drama club was having showcase night, where members performed monologues. Salina was doing Nina's speech from The Seagull. Daniel signed up to perform immediately after her. You're performing? Salina asked when she saw his name on the list. Apparently. What are you doing? It's a surprise. She gave him a suspicious look, but didn't press further. The night of the showcase, Daniel was 97% certain he was going to vomit. The remaining 3% was considering faking his own death and fleeing to Canada. Salina performed Nina's monologue beautifully, heartbreakingly. The audience was silent when she finished, then erupted in applause. She walked off stage and passed Daniel in the wings. Good luck, she whispered. He was going to need it. Daniel walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, the audience was dark. Somewhere out there was Salina, watching. This isn't a monologue, he began. I don't really do monologues. I do physics. I do equations. I do things that make sense according to predictable natural laws. A few chuckles from the audience. But recently, I've been doing something that makes no sense at all. I've been pretending to be an actor. And I've been doing it because 6 weeks ago, I walked into the wrong room and met someone who completely violated every predictable natural law I understood. He could see her now, sitting in the 3rd row. Her expression was unreadable. I don't know Shakespeare, I don't know Chekhov, but I know that light behaves as both a particle and a wave, which shouldn't be possible, but is. I know that quantum entanglement allows particles to affect each other across impossible distances. I know that the universe is full of things that don't make sense but are true anyway. His hands were shaking. He pressed on. I know that you drink your coffee black, that you read Chekhov when you're bored and Beckett when you're upset, that you tap your pen 4 times when thinking and 6 times when frustrated. That you have a scar above your left eyebrow, and you laugh at physical comedy in old movies. I know that you're brilliant and terrifying, and that you've been hurt by people who should have protected you. The room was absolutely silent. I know that I'm an orphan who accidentally joined drama club and has no business standing on this stage. But I also know that for the first time in 19 years, I've found somewhere I want to belong. Not because of the club, because of you. He could see her eyes, even from here. Wide, shining. So this isn't a monologue. This is me, Daniel Thornton, standing in front of approximately 50 people, violating every instinct towards self-preservation I've developed, and telling you that I've fallen completely in love with you. And if you're interested, even slightly, I'd really like to take you to dinner, somewhere that serves black coffee. He stood there, heart pounding, and waited. The audience was frozen. Time seemed suspended. Daniel began to wonder if he'd actually broken the universe this time. Then Salina stood up. She walked out of the row, down the aisle, and up the steps to the stage. She walked right up to him, gray eyes locked on his. "You absolute idiot," she said. Then she kissed him. The audience went wild. Chip was crying again, naturally. Tyler was whooping from the back row. But Daniel was only aware of Salina. Her hands in his hair, her lips on his, the fact that she was kissing him back like she'd been waiting for permission to do exactly this. When they finally broke apart, she was almost smiling. Not the cool, controlled expression he was used to, but something genuine and warm and slightly terrified. "I hate grand gestures," she said. "I know. That was the most melodramatic thing I've ever witnessed. I know. I'm difficult. I'm guarded. I have trust issues and mother problems, and I'll probably try to push you away. I know. And you still want to have dinner?" Daniel smiled. "I've calculated the odds. They're in my favor." "You can't calculate emotions, Daniel. Watch me." She laughed then, actually laughed, and kissed him again, and Daniel thought that maybe, just maybe, he'd finally found the equation that balanced. Epilogue, in which our hero reflects. The one-act festival was a success. The lover was weird and uncomfortable, and, according to the campus paper, surprisingly moving. Marcus Chen graciously congratulated them and started dating a nice girl from his economics class. Chip cried during every single performance and was already planning next semester's production. Daniel still couldn't really act, but he kept showing up to drama club every Tuesday and Thursday because Salina was there, and now she saved him a seat. They had their first official date at a small coffee shop off campus. Salina ordered black coffee. Daniel ordered the same, then immediately regretted it. It was terrible. How did she drink this? They talked about her family, his foster homes, her dreams of Broadway, his dreams of working at CERN. "You know this is insane, right?" Salina said, her hand in his across the table. "You're a physics genius. I'm a theater major. We have nothing in common." "We have drama club." "You joined by accident." "Happy accidents are still happy." She smiled, the real smile, the one that made her eyes crinkle, and Daniel felt like he'd solved an equation that had been plaguing him his entire life. "So, what happens now?" she asked. "Well," Daniel considered, "according to romantic comedy structure, we should have approximately 6 to 8 months of relative happiness, followed by a major conflict arising from our different life paths or a misunderstanding, leading to a temporary breakup, and then a reunion in the third act where we realize we can't live without each other. Or we could just be two people who like each other and see what happens." "That's terribly unscientific of you." "I'm learning to embrace uncertainty." "The physics genius is embracing uncertainty? Isn't that against your religion?" "Love makes hypocrites of us all." Salina raised an eyebrow. "Did you just quote something? Are you becoming cultured?" "I've been reading the plays you like, trying to understand what you see in them." "And?" "I still don't understand why everyone in Chekhov is so sad about everything, but I'm trying." She kissed him then, tasting of terrible black coffee and something sweet he couldn't identify. "I love you too, by the way," she said when they parted. "I didn't say it before, on stage, but I do." "I know." "How?" "You kissed me in front of 50 people. You hate public displays of emotion." "I hate a lot of things I do around you." "Is that good?" She considered this. "Yes," she said finally. "I think it might be." They stayed in that coffee shop until closing, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel told her about his dreams of understanding the universe. Salina told him about her fear of never being good enough, of always being the ice queen, of protecting herself so well that no one could get in. "Too late," Daniel said. "I'm in." "I noticed. You're very intrusive." "You love it." "I really do." Outside, it started to rain. They shared Daniel's jacket. Physics majors always carried weather-appropriate outerwear, and walked back to campus, taking the long route around the lake. "Can I ask you something?" Salina said. Always. Why did you really stay? After that first meeting, you knew you were in the wrong club. Daniel thought about this, about that first moment when he'd seen her in the back corner, surrounded by her fortress of disinterest, about the flash of something real during Romeo and Juliet, about every rehearsal, every coffee shop visit, every small moment that had led them here. I've spent my whole life looking for somewhere to belong, he said finally. Some equation that would explain why I was left behind, why I never found a permanent home. I thought maybe physics would be that answer. Understanding the universe might help me understand my place in it. And did it? No, but you did. Salina stopped walking. They were by the lake now, rain falling softly around them, Cornell's lights reflecting on the water. That's a lot of pressure to put on a person, she said quietly. I know. I'm not saying you're responsible for my happiness or my sense of belonging. I'm just saying that for the first time, I feel like I have a choice in where I belong. And I choose here, with you, even if you're difficult and guarded and drink coffee that tastes like burned sorrow. She laughed, and it echoed across the water. Burned sorrow. You really are spending too much time with theater people. Is that a complaint? No, it's an observation. They kissed again, rain-soaked and happy. And somewhere in the distance, Daniel could have sworn he heard Chip crying with joy. But that might have been the wind. 3 years later, Daniel defended his senior thesis on quantum entanglement to a standing ovation. Salina's performance as Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire received a rave review in the New York Times. They both got accepted to graduate programs, Daniel to MIT, Salina to NYU's Tisch School of the Arts. Boston and New York, Salina said, looking at their acceptance letters. That's doable. 213 miles, approximately 4 hours by train. You've calculated it already? Of course I have. They were in their coffee shop. Their coffee shop now, the one where everything had started. Salina still drank terrible black coffee. Daniel had switched to tea. We could do long distance, she said. People do. Or, Daniel suggested, we could get an apartment halfway between. I could commute to MIT. You could commute to NYU. That's insane. That's hours of travel every day. I've done the math. It works. You can't calculate everything, Daniel. I can try. She smiled at him, the real smile, the one she still mostly reserved for him. You know what the really terrifying thing is? She said. What? I'm actually considering it. Is it because you love me? It's because I'm apparently as insane as you are. I'll take it. They didn't end up getting the apartment halfway between. Instead, Daniel deferred MIT for a year and worked as a research assistant at Cornell while Salina did her first year at Tisch. Then, Salina deferred her second year to move to Boston with him. It wasn't practical. It wasn't efficient. It didn't follow any predictable pattern. But Daniel had learned, over the past 3 years, that the best things in life rarely did. He'd also learned that Salina secretly loved physical comedy. Not just appreciated it, loved it. That she cried during long-distance commercials, that she still read Chekhov when bored, but had expanded to Stoppard when frustrated. He learned that her favorite color was actually dark purple, not black. She just thought black looked more serious. And that she sang off-key in the shower and made truly terrible puns when she was sleep-deprived. He learned that love wasn't an equation to be solved, but a constant variable in an ongoing experiment. And he learned that sometimes the best discoveries come from walking into the wrong room. 5 years later, Daniel proposed during a production of The Seagull. It was Salina's off-Broadway debut, and she was playing Nina, the role she'd performed a monologue from all those years ago. Daniel sat in the front row, watching her transform into someone else entirely, and thought about how lucky he was that she transformed back into herself, into Salina, for him. After the show, during curtain call, he walked onto the stage. Chip had helped arrange it. Chip was always willing to help arrange dramatic moments. "What are you doing?" Salina hissed. "Still in character, still brilliant." "Something impractical and inefficient," Daniel said, getting down on one knee. The audience gasped. Salina's hand flew to her mouth. "Salina Jenkins, you are the most terrifying person I've ever met. You drink coffee that tastes like punishment. You made me join drama club when I can't act. You've dragged me to 17 plays that I didn't understand, and you've sat through exactly 0 physics lectures because, and I quote, I support you, but not that much." She was laughing and crying at the same time. You're also the kindest, most brilliant, most extraordinary person I know. You've taught me that uncertainty isn't something to fear. You've shown me that belonging isn't about finding the right equation, but finding the right person. And I'd really like to spend the rest of my life finding new ways to accidentally end up exactly where I'm supposed to be, with you. He pulled out the ring, a simple band with a small diamond, because Salina hated ostentatious displays of wealth, but loved meaningful gestures. Will you marry me? Salina looked at him, at the ring, at the audience full of strangers watching their private moment. Then she said, "You absolute idiot," and kissed him. The audience roared. The cast was crying. Somewhere in the back, Chip had probably passed out from emotional overload. But Daniel only heard Salina whisper, against his lips, "Yes, always yes." 10 years later, Dr. Daniel Thornton published a groundbreaking paper on quantum entanglement that made him the youngest recipient of the Breakthrough Prize in Physics. Salina Jenkins won a Tony Award for her performance in a new play about the foster care system. She'd insisted Daniel consult on the script to make sure the physics of trauma was accurate. "There's no physics of trauma," he'd said. "There absolutely is," she'd replied. They had a small apartment in Manhattan, a ridiculous cat named Heisenberg, and a tradition of attending drama club reunions at Cornell every year. At the most recent reunion, Chip, now teaching drama at a prestigious high school, had asked them to speak to the current members. "Any advice?" a nervous freshman asked. Daniel and Salina looked at each other. "Make mistakes," Salina said. "Walk into the wrong room," Daniel added. "Don't be afraid to look stupid. Do things that don't make sense. Love people who are wrong for you on paper, because paper doesn't know anything." The students looked confused. Daniel and Salina smiled. Later, walking across campus, Salina took Daniel's hand. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd found the ham radio club that day?" "All the time." And I'm glad I can't calculate probability across alternate timelines, because I don't want to know a universe where I didn't find you." "That's very romantic. I've been practicing. I can tell." They stopped by Goldwyn Smith Hall, by the room where Daniel had made his fateful wrong turn a decade ago. "You know what's funny?" Salina said. "What?" "It's room 237 now. They renumbered, so you weren't even wrong. The room numbers changed." Daniel stared at the door. "You're telling me I've based our entire origin story on a wrong room, and it wasn't even wrong? Apparently. That's narratively unsatisfying." Salina laughed. "Life usually is." "Should we tell people?" "Absolutely not. The story is better the other way. We're lying about our origin story. We're embracing narrative truth over factual accuracy. You've been spending too much time with theater people. You love theater people. I love one theater person." She kissed him then, right there in the hallway where it all began, or didn't begin, depending on your relationship with numerical accuracy. "I love you too," she said, "my brilliant, handsome, accidentally dramatic physics genius. I'm not dramatic. You proposed on stage. That was your stage. I was just borrowing it. You perform a grand gesture at least once a year. That's called being romantic. That's called being dramatic. Can't I be both?" She considered this. Yes, she decided, you can be both. You contain multitudes. Now who's being dramatic? I'm always dramatic. That's why you love me. And she was right. Daniel loved her for her drama, her ice queen exterior and her warm interior, her terrible coffee habits, and her secret love of puns. He loved her for every complicated, contradictory thing she was. Because love, he'd learned, wasn't about finding someone who made sense. It was about finding someone who made the nonsense worthwhile. They walked out of Goldwyn Smith Hall into the autumn afternoon, Heisenberg waiting for them at home, a whole life built on a mistake that wasn't a mistake, and Daniel thought, sometimes the best physics is the kind that doesn't add up. Sometimes the best stories are the ones that start with walking into the wrong room. And sometimes, the best love is the kind that makes absolutely no sense at all. The end.
I love making these videos for you. If you liked this story, then please like, subscribe to my channel, and switch on the notifications for more entertaining stories. Please also leave a comment for any story suggestions.